Konnichiwa! Welcome to the pilot episode of the Joe and Otter anime podcast featuring special guest Goatjesus. I was excited to have him on because, objectively speaking, he's the best anime reviewer on YouTube. We don't introduce ourselves on the recording, so I am Joe. Goatjesus is the guy who does most of the talking, and Otter is the other person. As you see, I have listed here 6 topics we hit in the podcast. Spoiler-wise, I'd say the Gurren Lagann section has heavy spoilers, and the Magica section has minor spoilers. Enjoy the podcast.
Okay, so what have you been watching recently?
In terms of anything, or in terms of anime?
I mean, in terms of anime.
In terms of anime, like I said, nothing. I really haven't had much time for pretty much anything.
Did you watch the Neon Genesis Evangelion CGI thing that came out yesterday?
I did, actually.
Pretty cool.
It was interesting. I don't know what the hell it's supposed to... Because it, like, almost implies that it is going to be, like, even a bigger thing, or, like, they're going to make, like, a movie out of it, or it has some integral part in terms of explaining some backstory between 2.0 and 3.0, and I have no idea what it's doing. So,
yeah,
it's cool.
I don't know what it's doing.
I liked the choreography a lot, the director, I'm trying to remember his name, but he's actually really significant in terms of mecha designs and mecha battles and stuff, so... God damn it, I can't think of his name. But, I'm really liking the Studio Kara, rather, their sort of animator expo. It's really fun. It's cool.
Yeah, like, a lot of huge hits have come out of there.
Me was, like, enormous, or whatever.
Oh my gosh.
Everybody was talking about it. Friggin' channels that don't talk about anime were talking about it, so...
Yeah, and it was... Did you see the thing on, like, adults react to, Me, or whatever that was?
Yeah, I saw that, and they're running out of ideas anyway, but
yeah.
It was kind of surprising.
Oh no, I thought it was really funny. Everybody's just like, what the hell is this? And it's really funny when you compare, the reaction to that with, like, the Shrek thing.
No. You mean, like, Shrek is love, Shrek is love?
Yeah.
Oh, that thing.
Yeah, I don't know. Just, that whole Me thing was ridiculous. I thought it was kind of cool. Then people tried to, like, interpret it way too much, and...
No, it's good for something, and it's very obvious.
I know it's obvious, but...
It even pretty much spells it out for you, what it means, and it's like... Basically, it's just about this guy who got absorbed in, like, escapism through anime and porn, and then tried to get out of it and got hooked back into it, and that's basically the story. That's the story. And it's like...
Yeah, I know, that's what I got from it, but people are trying to, like, make up other stuff, too, and...
Oh, no.
Just, yeah.
It's ambitious, that's for sure. I mean, especially for, like, a music video or a short film, it's pretty good in that regard, but it's not something that I think is extraordinarily deep. It's cool, though, and it's well animated, so
yeah,
I liked it
I agree.
For those reasons. I liked the music, too. The singer was pretty cool. Whoever they are.
I don't even remember the music. I saw it once, and I was like, okay, this is cool. Then everybody started talking about it, and I didn't watch it again, so...
Well, I didn't even know that it was, like, a big thing when I saw it, because it was just on the Animator Expo, and I've been watching that from the start, so... I was like, oh, another short film, okay. Probably the weakest of the short films so far that I've seen was Hill Climb Girl, though. The one with the bicycles.
Oh, yeah.
Does anybody actually care about that one?
I don't know. I haven't heard anybody talk about it, so...
Yeah, well, I've heard people sort of discuss the other things, in a relatively positive light, especially Carnage, but, which was the one about the cowboy girl going around and shooting dimps, so revenge stories and all that jazz.
Yeah. Have you been watching the the little Trigger shorts that they've been putting out.
Trigger's doing shorts?
Here, I'll link it in the chat.
Like Studio Trigger?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I'm personally one of those people who actually enjoyed Kill la Kill, but I don't think it's good. It's kind of...
Yeah, I like Kill la Kill. The only thing is, like, you know how, like, in Dragon Ball Z, when Vegeta has, like, these great speeches or whatever? Like, the speeches in Kill la Kill, they just didn't, like, resonate with me as much.
It's sort of interesting to me that, you know, someone like Digibro, who also analyzes anime, he really loves it from the perspective, and thinks it's extraordinarily deep from the perspective that it's basically a self-admitting clusterfuck of themes and ideas, and it's like, I don't get how that's good. I think that's really bad, actually.
Well, I saw a Digibro video where he was saying he talked to this guy that plans on writing a book about the themes behind Kill la Kill.
Not really the themes, the parallels in terms of Japanese culture of Kill la Kill. So,
which seems like a good idea.
Well, I mean, it seems like it's definitely referencing these legitimate, like, Japanese events and stuff like that, but to what degree and to what commentary on it, I am unsure. I'm sure that there is commentary. It's just something that this is not something that a Westerner would get, like a normal person watching this show from America or Canada or Europe would understand, and
right.
and that's
if you do
not
understand. It's like some sort of like imperialism analogy for imperialism. Like, I don't think it adds to the show or anything like that.
I mean, someone could make a really cool analysis video on it and bring to light a lot of this stuff, and I think that would be extra cool, but it doesn't change the fact that to the casual viewer, their experience is significantly diminished because of the lack of understanding of these concepts. So, to be fair, something like Evangelion is also, like, I was looking up postmodern existentialism, Jesu Otaku. Thank you for making up a word, Jesu Otaku. But seriously, I'm part of a philosophy class and, you know, college course philosophy. And I brought it up to my professor, and I'm just like, so what's postmodern existentialism? And then he started laughing, because postmodern existentialism is an oxymoron. Postmodernism was made in response to existentialism, and it's supposed to be going against it, so to have them be simultaneous is bizarre. And he looked it up, and the only person who can really be said to be a postmodern existentialist is from a historical standpoint, which is Nietzsche, because he considered himself an existentialist, but really his concepts were postmodernist. So, he's a postmodern existentialist, because he's self-proclaimed as an existentialist, but has ideas of a postmodernist. So, there you go. That's the closest thing. But as far as it comes, Jesu Otaku made up the fucking word, and like, so frustrating. I mean, I talked about this on Ava Geeks with some people too, but the point is, there was an original point, and Evangelion, you know, it talks about all these, like, concepts about various philosophical standpoints, but it's pretty layman in terms of how it communicates it, so it's not like you can't get something out of it, is what I'm trying to say. Like when it talks about perception, and there's a specific line where it says if you view sad days as happy days, you know, rainy days can be fun too, and that's pretty clear what it's trying to get at with that line. I mean, it's something that anybody can understand, but something like Kill la Kill with Japanese empiricism, how can anybody understand that? It's something that's really cryptic.
And he was like giving specific examples, like each character is a specific person. Yeah.
They're like a god or something, yeah. Like
that's kind of tough to follow for someone.
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of.
When I watch a show, I don't want to think that much, though. Like, I don't want to have a fucking Japanese encyclopedia at my side when I'm watching Kill la Kill.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. And it's not like Kill la Kill, from a narrative standpoint, really deserves that credit anyway, because its narrative is so basic and lackluster in a lot of... just take over the world plot. Friggin', you know, oh my gosh, I am your mother plot twist, you know... Like, this is all simple stuff. I enjoyed the ride, but it's not good. And there's a difference between something being enjoyable and being good in my mind, for me. I mean, certainly someone like Digibro can come along and say, yeah, I think it's good, and I think these reasons are why it's good, and that's perfectly reasonable, because everything is subjective on a core level. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I think the writing quality for something like Kill la Kill is on par with even something like Gurren Lagann, which had a stronger narrative, I feel.
Okay, yeah, I was actually about to ask you about that. Just because it's a lot of the same people in the studio, what do you think about Gurren Lagann? Because that's like pretty much the same studio that did Kill la Kill, like a different name, same people.
I think it's really odd that Simon, I'm never going to call him Simone, no matter how many people say it, it's never going to be a thing, because whenever someone says Simone, I just think of someone like cum or something like that. So no, I'm not saying that. But anyway, I think Simon's character development is pretty okay. It's fairly strong, and it's very typical in the sense that it's supposed to be like echoing a monomyth, which is essentially, the call to the journey and the refusal of the journey and la 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 la. It's this typical story structure, but it executes it fairly well and is pretty dynamic with those elements. I really liked contrasting Nia with Kamina, which is a point that I hear a lot, but I think Simon never truly ever develops in the way that I would have liked for him to have, because he never becomes an individual in my mind. He only becomes an evolution of Kamina and Nia. And it's like, I never felt like he was himself, even though he says, I'm not my bro, I'm going to be my own person and grow up into my own person. And technically that's sort of true, but he never really... All of the same moves are Kamina's. He does several poses that Kamina does. He tries to imitate him visually as well, and it just feels like he's never growing into his own person, that he's just trapped under a shadow, which is very odd, and I don't think it's intentional. So I don't like his character development from that standpoint. I think the first half of the show was pretty cool, and then the second half sort of slowed down for me to the point where I think it's not really, it shouldn't have done that, because the first half of the show is like, we're goofy, lighthearted fun, and the second half was just like political, oh my gosh, things are going, it's Razio, I'm doing politics and stuff, and it's been a while since I've actually seen the series, so keep that in mind, but I don't remember having very much fun in that half. And I thought Nia being the anti-spiral was one of the stupidest plot twists ever. That made no sense. Yeah,
I kind of agree there. Because they didn't really foreshadow it at all.
They didn't. It was like, hi, I'm Nia, and by the way, I'm the, destroyer of worlds. It's like,
spoilers. What?
Spoilers, no, seriously, but I think that, I think also, like I said, it's been a while, but I never really cared about Nia and her relationship with Simon. I sort of feel like they needed to develop that more strongly than they did in that second half. In the first half, I think it was building up properly, but in the second half, it was just like, I don't understand core concepts of marriage, and also we hardly interact, and now I'm evil. And that's something that I didn't really like.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I was never really a big fan of Nia, because I don't know, I never felt that she was really connected to any of the other characters. Because, she obviously had a thing with Simon.
Yeah.
But, I mean, even that just seemed like they were definitely friends. He kind of loved her, but they didn't really expand on that as much as I would have liked, I think.
I just don't get how they connect as people. I understand the core concept of it, but it doesn't work, I feel. And so it's not like the show, I mean, okay, for all of the sort of messages of female empowerment as well, I think it's really funny that Yoko is basically just Dexter Morgan's sister from the TV show. Where it's always like, my love is kissed, and now they'll die. And it's like
you only kiss once, right?
She has the kiss of death.
Yeah.
It's just like it's just like Deborah, but I think it's just like Yoko's character is very simplistic and not very good, at all. So
I mean, I feel like none of the side characters were that deep, anyways, and that wasn't really the focus of the show at all, because they were just all pretty much the same throughout the entirety of it.
Keaton is an example of a character who does change, though.
Okay, well, yeah, I mean,
Rossiu is sort of the same, though, actually.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of see Rossiu as, like, almost a main character, because he was, I don't know, just because he actually does something in part 2, I guess. So.
Well, Keaton tries to get the band together and, like, you know, sort of, if I'm remembering it right. As I said, I'm not qualified to really talk about this show as much as I should be. I was working on a review of it, like, 2 years ago or something.
Okay.
But that would have turned out disastrous, and I'm really glad that I didn't do a review of it, because I feel like I was really too harsh on the show for its credentials of... I wanted to make the review in response to Arcada's review, because he said that he didn't care about the fact that... He was basically giving, like, a not fair review to the show because he thought it was enjoyable. And that was, something that I really didn't like when I saw it, but...
Yeah, well, I mean, that's obviously, like, really subjective, though, because if he found it so enjoyable that he was able to overlook a lot of the things the show didn't do as well, then that's his opinion, that's how he experienced it, so...
Well, I'm not saying that his opinion's wrong. I was just saying that it was going to be in response to that concept. I wasn't even going to mention him in the review.
Okay.
Right.
So it was just like supposed to be looking at it from here's the show, here's what it does well, here's what it does badly, which is very much like how I tackled Madoka Magica in the end, because it's like I don't necessarily really hate the show at all. I don't even dislike it. I think it's okay.
Were you ever like one of those people that watch like 10 airing shows a season and such?
Yeah, I mean, I would keep up with basically everything like 2 seasons ago, but not so much anymore because of the fact that I've got so much school, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Like, just doing that, like, I just did that, like, for the first time, like, last season or whatever. And if you do that, like, you find, like, all the famous shows that everyone recommends and such, they're all, like, kind of decent compared to, like, just your average anime. They're probably all, like, above average, in my opinion.
Yeah. How does this pertain to, like, Madoka Magica at all?
I'm just saying, like, in review it in general. Like, I was, like, reading blogs and stuff, and people say, like, Amagi Brilliant Park is a decent show. It's like, well, if that's decent, like, Gurren Lagann is not a bad show if Amagi Brilliant Park is a decent show, you know? So
I never thought Gurren Lagann was a bad show. I think it's somewhere between, like, if I was gonna rate it, probably somewhere between, like, an 8 and, like, an 8.5 or something.
Right.
It's beautifully animated. It has a stellar soundtrack, also despite what Arcada said.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, forgettable soundtrack. What? So it's sort of the soundtrack was really diverse and really spectacular because of that. But like I said, I just think that it's not like this perfect, amazing show. I don't even think that it's a commentary on like retro anime or anything like that, which is something that Nino, my a sort of, I guess he's like a friend or acquaintance. I don't speak to him as much as I'd like, but he was pointing out that like the second half was supposed to be a commentary on like the Evangelion era of anime, and I don't think I agree with that.
I disagree with that.
Yeah, Digibro had a video where he was saying like the first 10 episodes are the 70s, and then the 80s, and then the 90s, and so on, and it was all about like each part of the show was a commentary, was a homage to a different era in the mecha genre.
Well, I don't necessarily... Well, I mean, like, Jimmy went on to say that it's like, remember how boring that part was? Well, that's because Evangelion's a piece of shit. And, like, and so, I mean, it's fine for him to dislike Ava. I totally understand why anybody would. In fact, it's kind of remarkable that I consider the original series critically lower in score than something like Gurren Lagann, but I enjoy it more. I like it a lot more.
I like it more.
Subjective level. So, I think that, like, Ava is really just brought down by its last episodes and its animation, which is piss poor in some places. It's really bad in some places, but it's also pretty good in others, so. I think it really depends on the reception of the time, what funding was being had, and it's just kind of remarkable to me that, like, Hideaki Anno, the series creator, had to sit down and animate the last 2 episodes partially on his own because it was running out of money.
Yeah.
So, but I like Ava a lot, and I thought it was a very entertaining, very cerebral show, and probably one of the first things that sort of introduced me into what anime could do, and that it is really just a medium. It's not something that is like...
It's not a genre.
It's not a genre. It is a medium, and Fullmetal Alchemist sort of was a prelude to that as well, because I really loved FMA 2003 when I was younger, but it still felt very typical to what I was expecting in anime.
Yeah, because it was like the action-adventure shonen type thing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, when you think of, like, when I caught a couple episodes of Naruto back in the Dizzle schmizzle, and it sort of reminded me of that when I was 11, but of course FMA, in retrospect, is on such a higher caliber than something like Naruto.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, dude, funny story about Naruto, so... I got Shonen Jump back in the day, so I was always reading it. And I must have been like 12 or 13, and I was too elitist way back then to even watch the anime when the dub was coming out.
What, manga elitism? Oh, that's dumb.
Yeah, dude. I was like 12 years old, and I was a manga elitist. It was awful.
I don't get manga elitism, because, again, I think that FMA 2003, which is just a Gecko ending anime adaptation, is in many ways better than its manga counterpart, and is better than Brotherhood. I don't think that the manga is worse than 2003, though. I think the manga is slightly better from the perspective that it does have a lot of elements that were missing in Brotherhood, while having a very coherent story like in Brotherhood as well. So it's good for those reasons, and I think that the manga surpasses both anime series. But it's not like the 2003 isn't worth watching. Arguably, Brotherhood isn't worth watching, but I say arguably for the reason that the manga just does it better. But it's like, of course, you know, you get action scenes and stuff like that, but I even think Brotherhood doesn't use like music or art as well. The entire climax of Brotherhood it takes place in blue skies, green trees around, barren whiteness of Central City, and it just feels so flat and really, really, really badly directed in that climax of the series. And I would have loved to have seen some sort of moody atmosphere to go along with the final battle. The rain from the opening sequence just makes me want that for the climax. Like, I wish it was raining during the father fight scene, but that's not the case.
Wait, what was the opening sequence again?
You know, the 5th opening, when it was like raining.
Okay, yeah. Okay, it's been a while since I've seen Brotherhood, so...
I rewatched Brotherhood twice over to do my analysis video on it recently, so I'm very familiar with it. Maze Hughes, again, his funeral, really good example of how Brotherhood doesn't understand color tone or like mood very well. Blue skies, trees, not nearly as good as in 2003, where the grass and stuff was like yellowed and dying, and it looked like it was fall, and there was like gray overcast and stuff. But it wasn't overt. It was just kind of moody and proper for what was going on. And I feel like Brotherhood failed on many levels to capture the same atmosphere that you would imagine yourself in the manga. So I do think, arguably, the manga is better than Brotherhood. And you might as well just read it instead. But I do think that 2003 is worth watching because it's so different. And it's like a whole new story with a different focus on different characters. And Edward he gets the highlight in 2003. His best incarnation is in FMA 2003. So if you want to watch 2003 for a character study on Edward Elric, then I highly recommend that. But, you know, I'm not saying Brotherhood isn't worth watching. I'm just saying debatably it isn't. So
Okay, so
and I own the entire series on Blu-ray. So
oh yikes. Okay, so moving on from Full Metal Alchemist. So like in the past, like let's say 3 or 4 years, what have been your favorite shows? Just like since 2010, I guess.
Oh gosh. Okay. Probably Ping Pong the Animation is going to be definitely one of them. Tatami Galaxy, fantastic, love it. Akinohana, I really loved Akinohana. That's a very controversial opinion to have, but I think that Akinohana is generally, like, a lot of anime reviewers are recognizing it as being very good. Ryuga has it on his favorites list. Sarah 42 Believer, she's got 30,000 subscribers. She has it on her favorites list. Jean really likes it too, but then again, Jean really likes Mirai Nikki, so there you go. But I just think that Akinohana is a spectacular series that unfortunately we'll never get to see finished because of the backlash that it had for its slower pacing and its more rough around the edges animation, which isn't fair. I would have liked to have seen it take a shot at actually finishing and then have people judge it. But on top of that, Shinsekai Yori was really good. Nagi no Asakara is really good. I'm trying to think as well. I mean, Fate Zero is alright. Unlimited Blade Works is a little bit more disappointing.
Yeah. Okay. I kind of want to talk about that actually. So there's obviously been a lot of hype around Unlimited Blade Works because there's like the huge VN fan base. But to be honest, as somebody that didn't play the virtual novel, I just wasn't really interested in Unlimited Blade Works at all.
There's a couple of things that... Yeah, go on.
No, because I saw Fate Zero, I think, while Unlimited Blade Works was airing, and, like, it was just such a letdown compared to Fate Zero, because it felt really slow and, like, nothing that they were doing really mattered. I don't know. That's just how I felt.
Yeah, I agree. I think Fate... not a lot happened so far, so that was... I like when things happen. It's more exciting.
Yeah, and then half the show is saber eating, so what's up with that?
Well, that's... Okay, half the show is battles, and then half the show is saber eating, because really what it is one episode, nothing happens, second episode, something happens, there's a battle, and then it just rinses and repeats that formula. It's nothing, then something, then nothing, then something, then nothing, then something, and it gets frustrating to go through that pattern. Fate Zero, though, I think largely feels the same way in terms of, for me, watching it again, because I'm rewatching it with my friend, and I feel like it has the same issue. It frustrates me because relatively it feels like the entire plot could be resolved in a couple of episodes if they wanted to do that. There's a lot of preemptive preparation to try to win the battles, but it doesn't feel like anything is really all that realistic or good in terms of the planning. I never felt like there was anything clever going on. It didn't give me that feeling like Death Note had. A lot of the time it would just be Kiritsugu watching from a rooftop, things happening, and then nobody winning that battle, and then everybody just leaving. And then it was like... I mean, that was frustrating. It feels like nothing happens in Fate Zero as well, for a long time. But the difference, because there's a key difference, is the fact that Fate Zero focuses on adult characters and is relatively more dark and doesn't have slice of life.
I was about to point that out because I really think the slice of life part kind of hurts Unlimited Blade Works. Just because it's like when there is downtime, it's like very much downtime compared to the action. Like it's such a huge contrast between like saber fighting Berserker versus like Shiro and Rin flirting. Like it's kind of frustrating.
And my hot take on the prologue episode is Rin talks to herself like the entire prologue episode, and it's like you can't really do that. You can't really just have a character talk out loud to themselves. But
I really liked the prologue episode, actually. Even though she did talk to herself, it felt like I was kind of hoping that Rin would be more of a focus of the entire series, because she was much more down to earth than her visual novel counterpart, and not so tsundere in that first prologue episode. Then she suddenly started to get that way later on. You'll notice the contrast if you watch episode 0, where the most tsundere thing she does is to tell Archer to clean up the mess, and then you just have her like melting down randomly in places and being like, like on the floor rolling around when Shiro does something that annoys her.
Right. Now she's pretty much just the love interest, I would say.
But it's stupid. And it's just like, I wanted the character to take herself a little bit more seriously and really have this take on the visual novel's not so serious, and I wanted them to kind of take it in a more serious tone, because it just doesn't work now. Fate Zero is really dark, and, it's sort of moody and slowish in places, and Fate's Day Night has certainly got the slow part down, but it doesn't have anything else going into it, and it's just disappointing to see that Unlimited Blade Works did not play on Fate Zero as well as it should have. It's supposed to be a sequel, and I was hoping that they would design it to be more of a sequel to Fate Zero.
But I feel like part of that is you can't put all the blame on the director. It's also just kind of on the virtual
source
novels.
Material, yeah. Yeah, of course, but I wish that they had been more liberal. There are some things that slipped past, but...
I mean, the guy could have changed it, What would have they... He could have changed the plot, made some minor tweaks to make his own vision of the series.
Yeah.
I don't think maybe they would have killed him for it. Like, people argue that it's supposed to be for visual novel readers, and not the people that just watch Phase Zero and are watching Fate's Day Night because they thought Phase Zero was cool.
Fate Zero doesn't make any goddamn sense unless you're familiar with Fate's Day Night, so I guess makes...
I kind of understood.
You think you understand it.
Is there a lot more I'm missing?
Well, for instance, why doesn't Karya actually, I think it's his name, Karya, doesn't kill Zoken? Why do you not know that? It's like one of the biggest plot holes in Fate Zero if you haven't read the visual novel.
I agree. Is Karya the guy that has...
the white hair?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, he just basically takes a bunch of torture for no reason, apparently, in the show, and they never explain it because they're relying on you to have read Unlimited Blade Works, Heaven's Feel, to understand that. And so there's a lot of things in Fate Zero that it assumes that you're familiar with the source material, otherwise it just doesn't make any sense. You should go back and rewatch it and look at it from the standpoint of, what would I do in this character situation? Wait, they're being stupid, why are they doing this? And then there's an explanation for that, but the show doesn't make that clear, because it's relying on you to have been familiar with the source material. So, that's a lot of the Grail and how it works, and the history as well, is also not really explained very well in Zero. Or the rules of the game, for example, what constitutes a victory, and how does that sort of play about, and there's more complications to it, the reason why Gilgamesh wound up winning, though technically every servant wasn't killed and stuff, and it's strange. So
right, they explain that better if you read a visual novel.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, my favorite episode of Fate Zero were the main characters' flashback episodes. I'm like, oh man, another tragic flashback episode. I've seen this 100 times. But they deliver on the tragic flashback episodes in Phase Zero. Those are intense.
Dude, Urabuchi's just recycling his Madoka formula for Fate Zero. It's the exact same structure. And that part was just Homer's backstory, just except Kiritsugu's backstory. The reason that Fate Zero is more appealing to people, I think, well, certain friends of mine certainly don't like Madoka Magica and then like Fate Zero because of the fact that it's more adult, in its presentation and aesthetic rather than its tone. I think Madoka is better than Fate Zero on so many levels, though. It's not even funny. From the perspective that Fate Zero takes so long to basically tell a very similar story that was already told in Madoka Magica, and Madoka Magica is so much shorter. It's much more sweet and short, and it gets the point across. Plus, they have the exact same utilitarian themes.
Yeah, I was about to point that out. Yeah.
So, I don't know. I mean, even Kiritsugu looks like, I'm adult Homura, except I'm Guy.
Yeah, pretty much.
And it's I don't know. So, but Urabuchi is a one-trick pony because even though a lot of people say that, oh yeah, look at all these masterpieces he did, he created Fate Zero and Madoka Magica, the same story. What else has he done? Oh yeah, lolly tentacle porn, where the guy got pushed down the well and there was a secret passageway which saved him. I fucking hate Sayano Uta. I think it's the worst piece of shit I've ever read. But that's like, it's so garbage, and people will defend it, saying that it's like, oh my gosh, it's his first work and stuff. But then you look at other things like Suisei no Gargantia or All Noah Zero, and it's just like, the first 3 episodes of All Noah Zero were bad. What are you guys talking about? It wasn't the good part of the show. It was bad. It was really like slow in pacing, and the characters are distant, and nobody makes sense, and nothing that they do makes sense, and it's just like, I mean, it got worse, arguably, but still.
I think it got worse, but it still just wasn't a great show, and the fact that Gen Urobuchi was part of the first episode was pretty much just to sell it as a series.
I think Madoka Rebellion is a fucking piece of shit. I hate that movie. I've seen it so many times, and I can't.
That was one of my fun facts. You watched it, 7 times, you said?
No, 14.
Oh, jeez.
Maybe 7 times when I made the review. I watched it again, because people were saying it's like, oh, there's this and this, and I'm like, yeah, I can see that. It's a piece of shit movie. And it's like, it doesn't play upon its world properly. It really doesn't. It doesn't feel like a sequel that it probably should be. It just feels like, oh, look at this. It's a story you weren't expecting, and then we have to explain it using an 11-minute cutscene or whatever scene. It's like, I don't care. It's not justified. Its existence is made specifically to shock people, and it's not very good at it, and I don't give a shit, to be frank. It just feels like a waste of time every time I watch it. Homura was probably the best character they had, and they kind of ruined her, arguably, and everything about the art direction is a clusterfuck, to the point where it's like, wait, there's a final battle? Why do I even care about what's happening here? It feels like, from a visual standpoint as well, that nothing goes anywhere, and it's over-bloated, and things are, oh god. It's so incoherent, visually and narratively, and really badly paced, and oh god. People like it because it's doing, Madoka followed Evangelion, like Neon Genesis Evangelion. Its ending was arguably influenced by End of Evangelion to begin with, but that movie legitimately tried to be End of Evangelion. Like, I even read interviews where Aki Ushimbo was like, yep, this is our Evangelion, End of Evangelion. And he didn't understand what made End of Eva good. Because End of Eva is supposed to be like a direct sequel to the events that happened. It makes total coherent sense, builds upon the characters, and resolves them. But now it's like, Rebellion is just sequel fuel. And even Gen Urobuchi was saying, I hope Madoka Magica goes on to have so many sequels that it outlives me and stuff. It's really...
Oh god. Not excited for those sequels.
Aren't you though? It's gonna be Sayaka Magica. It's gonna finally start the actual main character of Madoka Magica. It's like, just saying, Sayaka was more of a main character than Madoka was in the first half of the show. And the second half is Homura, so Madoka was, like, superfluous to the entire plot, pretty much, except for karmic bonding, or whatever.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be
whatever.
Giga Madoka. Yeah! Karmic bonding is so cheap. And the reason why I didn't like it when I was watching the original series as an explanation for the events that happened was because it's an actual sort of mythological concept, but they never really foreshadowed it. What they did foreshadow was that Madoka had power, but they never foreshadowed why she had power, and I thought that was really stupid. They might as well have just conjured up anything. I can write a character as, like, ultra powerful and then at the end say, it was the Sampo, in a very, very obscure mythological reference that actually granted this person unlimited resources, and then it was, I don't know, it just feels dumb. So, it feels like a weak explanation, because karmic bonding was never anything that was introduced into the show previously, so when you don't have this concept and then suddenly you introduce it to explain something away, it feels really weak, in my opinion. But
I agree. Yeah, I completely agree with that, because I'm even looking at all my other shows and, well, mostly shonens that just have, like, random power-ups, and all the ones that I have rated highly have, like, an explanation for why the power-up happens, but also a foreshadowing for why it exists in the first place. And I think that's really necessary.
It is. Plus, I would have liked for Madoka Magica to have challenged its ideals a little bit more than it did. If you had made Madoka a vegetarian as a character, there's something that I'm going with this, then it would have actually been really interesting, because Kyubey makes this parallel to, it's like, well, you treat cows like shit, and you treat farm animals like shit, it's like, he's got a point. But then Madoka could have been like, what, but I'm vegetarian, and I don't support that. I don't support your system. And then what would he say in response to that? It just makes me think,
well, you treat carrots like shit, don't you?
No, well, it's like, it's just sort of funny to me that he's trying to justify it by the paralleling what humans do to farm animals and stuff like that for his treatment of the magical girls, and then she could have come around and said, but your standpoint doesn't make any sense because there are people who don't support this structure, and it's like, that would been cool to have seen some more contrary beliefs instead of just asserting a claim about something and not looking at all sides in the argument. And it's sort of, I think it would have been more complex if it had done that. Instead of just Sayaka on the train being like, you treat men so bad, let me beat the shit out of you. It would have been nice to have had a counter argument for this instead of just asserting that men are pieces of shit in this regard.
Well, this is like a theme of, like, all vampire shows, that the vampires, like, don't have a choice. They, like, have to, like, eat humans. And they...
Cool, yeah.
And they have, like, us, like, assume that, like, this is, like, a real question. Like, are the vampires doing evil when they eat humans? And it's like, well, hell yeah, they are. You're not supposed to eat humans. So that was always my take on that theme. It never really made sense.
I think it is a little bit more complicated from the standpoint that it's like, is all life equivalent? I mean, if we are, then anybody who eats meat is kind of being a piece of shit too, so it's sort of...
all life's equivalent, then eating chicken is murder, right?
It is.
Yeah.
But I think that there is that to sort of brush upon. It's like, what is the value of a life, and why do we equate human life as being above everything else? Technically, the only thing that we've got going on is the fact that our resources physically went into our mental sort of build instead of actually being a physical one. If you look at chimpanzees, they're like 4 or 5 times stronger than people because their resources went into their own strength instead of their mind. And so we're weak, but we've got different things that make us more strong because of it, because we can build guns and we've got things going on. And it's sort of, so I don't necessarily think that, I mean, when you look at it from the viewpoint that humans are basically the same as everything else, except we've got more stats placed into one aspect. It's kind of like, well, chimpanzees have nervous systems, and cows have nervous systems, and pigs have nervous systems, and chickens have nervous systems, and you're basically inflicting pain upon them, so you're taking away a life that it has the right to live, so how does that fit into things? I'm not saying that you should be vegan or vegetarian or anything like that. I'm just making a point about something, and it's more complicated when you look at it. So there's viewpoints. What I'm saying is that there's different things to look at and examine when you come to this sort of stuff, and it's sort of, you have to do it in a way that I feel when you're writing fiction that covers a lot of angles, as many angles as you can, without being overt about it. The less overt you are, I think, the better.
But then I think another thing you have to watch out for is not spreading yourself too thin, because I feel like that's something Kill la Kill did, and something that actually ended up hurting it. Was that it tried to cover too many things at once without really going beyond the surface.
It did, but it was pretty overt and simple about it too, and it kind of covered a lot of totally different subjects, like completely different, and did not coherently tie them together, I don't think. I don't believe that it did that. I mean, when you can focus on one topic and then cover it from different angles, I think that's really significant. I was just watching a movie called The Beasts of the Southern Wilds, and how it was covering climate change, but it did it in a way that was very subtextual, that was not preachy, and it did it in, from different angles. It portrayed characters and environmental perspectives on how people are reacting to the matter at hand. And that's something that I feel like that sophistication with storytelling is more rare to find in anime. Wait,
is that the show about the,
it's a movie.
In Louisiana, right? Or something?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I saw that one. Yeah.
Did you pick up on any of that sort of, those themes and stuff?
Yeah.
It does it without being, too preachy about it, and I think that was cool. But
yeah.
There was one scene where it was pretty preachy about it, but then after that it was kind of So. But there's a lot of symbolism going on in terms of the aurochs and the ice and how that pertains to the general themes of climate change throughout the film. I mean, I wrote a paper on it, so... but, I don't know, it's again, for in Beasts of the Southern Wild, they sort of portray the upper class or the middle class's perspective on the events that happen in the film and how it's connected to the people in Louisiana. Also, while being a commentary on the government and how it handles certain disaster situations like Hurricane Katrina. And it did all of it without really being too... It didn't try all that hard to do that. And it's kind of good that it managed to sort of make you think about things and read a little bit into certain aspects without feeling like you're pulling it out of nowhere.
Yeah, it felt natural, I felt, because it was, everything it presented was following the same, narrative, just story-wise. All the ideas tied into the, narrative it was presenting, so that helps a lot.
Yeah, well, the overarching narrative was something that was relatively simple, but then there was a lot of subtext of how it played.
Yeah, and I thought that was good, that it was simple. Because they were able to have a simple story, but then talk about a lot of other things, because you didn't have to focus on the story too much.
When you look at it from this perspective, think about something like, in regards to, Evangelion, really all it is a Monster of the Week show, but taking a step back and being how are the characters feeling about being in this situation? And that's from that perspective. That's pretty simple, too, but it manages to touch base with a lot of different ideas because of how it sort of talks about its narrative is super simple, but the way that it presents it is very complicated. As something opposed to something like Naoki Urasawa's Monster, where its narrative is extremely complicated, but it still manages to be good because it does this amazing juggling act where it doesn't forget characters, and it still pertains. The narrative still manages to have coherence. for somehow. I don't know how it does it really. I'm rewatching it to figure it out, but it was great when I was watching it before. So I thought it was amazing, and it was super complicated, but hardly anybody manages to pull that off. I mean, look at something like Matrix. The Matrix became ridiculously complicated in its second and third installment, and then it became shit because of it. You know, complexity does not equate good. Mamoru Hosoda even said that himself. Like the biggest sort of thing that he learned while working at Studio Ghibli was to take simple subject matter and try to build upon that in a way that's more relevant and to people, while also touching base with different ideas. Like Wolf Children covers a lot of family dynamics and has all these like interesting sort of questions, while also being really simple in its narrative. And I think it's a really good film because of it. Wolf Children is it's pretty good. So
Yeah.
That's all for this episode. I have some links to some stuff we talked about below. For our upcoming schedule, expect a new podcast every Monday. I know I'm definitely going to do an all Your Light April podcast. I don't know if it's going to be next week because I might want to wait until it's closer to finishing. If you want to contact the show, my email address is josepho12@yahoo.com, which is JOSOFO. See you next week. Sayonara.